Good morning. So I think we'll make a start now. It's just after 9 AM UK time. So welcome to our brand new webinar, UKCA, everything you need to know. So as the title suggests, everything in this webinar is about the new UKCA standard certification. So I can see a lot of you on here from the UK. Obviously, this will affect you directly, and also some names on as well from outside the UK. So there is, we will go through some areas which you need to be aware of as well. So hopefully everyone on will find this useful. So a few housekeeping rules just to talk you through the format. So I'm shortly going to hand you over to Jonathan Somerset. He's going to take you through the bulk of the webinar. At the end, there will be opportunity to ask questions in a Q&A session. You should notice on your GoToWebinar control panel that there's a questions section on there, so you can type in any questions you have as we go through, and we'll do our best to cover those at the end of the webinar. So feel free to ask those questions as we go through. We'll pick those up at the end. But other than that, just to thank you for attending today. And like I say, I'll pass you over now to Jonathan, who'll take you through the bulk of the webinar. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Callum, for that introduction. And hello, and thank you for everyone for taking the time to join us today for this webinar. As Callum said, my name is Jonathan Somerset, and I'm the product manager here at Raytec for the hazardous and industrial division. So the subject of today's webinar is UKCA marking, and we're going to try and cover everything that you might need to know in relation to hazardous lighting in particular. So let's take a look at the agenda for today's session. Firstly, we'll be looking at UKCA. What is it and why is it important? Then how this new type of marking affects how you specify lighting in the UK. What happens if you're buying lighting from a UK manufacturer? Then we'll come on to what Raytec are doing on this subject. And finally, as Callum said, we'll have a Q&A session at the end where we try and answer any questions that you might have. So UKCA. So following the UK's departure from the European Union, we entered into a transition period which came to an end on the 31st of December 2020. So from January the 1st, 2021, the UKCA mark, which is the UK Conformity Assessment, has replaced CE marking and declares that the product conforms to the applicable UK legislation to be placed on the market in England, Scotland and Wales. However, due to the Northern Ireland Protocol, goods in Northern Ireland will continue to require CE marking, or in some particular cases, UK NI mark. So UKCA affects all products subject to the EU directives that used to require CE marking. So this is radio equipment, EMC directive, low voltage directive, and these cover a huge number of different products, not just lighting. So lighting is affected by these changes, and in particular, we're going to look at how this affects lighting for potentially explosive atmospheres. So in the UK, this was formerly covered by the requirements of the ATEX directive 2014/34/EU. This has now been replaced with the UK directive SI 2016 number 1107. So this is effectively a UKEx scheme to replace the ATEX directive in Great Britain. So anybody manufacturing EX lighting for the GB market will have to make some changes to how their products are certified in order to be compliant with the new UKEx scheme. So about timescales. So as I said, UKCA marking has been allowed on products put on the market in GB since the 1st of January 2021. And in some cases, this marking is mandatory. So if the product is intended for use only on the Great British market and is conformity assessed by a UK approved body, then you must apply the UKCA mark. However, for a majority of products, we are currently in a grace period where the CE mark and the ATEX directive will still be recognised in GB, providing that the conformity of the product has been assessed by EU 27 notified body. However, the advice is that if the UK that the UKCA mark should be applied to products as soon as possible and absolutely must be in place before the 31st of December 2021. So this is when the grace period comes to an end, and from this date only the UKCA mark will be recognised for products placed on the GB market. So if you're specifying lighting for the GB market, let's just go over those key dates again. So between January this year and January next year, we're in a grace period where the UKCA mark is valid if conformity is assessed by a UK body. And C and Raytec are also still valid as long as this conformity is assessed by an EU27 notified body. And during this grace period, the UKCA mark is encouraged for use as soon as possible. After January 2022, C and Raytec mark will no longer be accepted in the UK, and all products must be certified to UKCA. And this applies in England, Scotland and Wales, with a separate requirement for Northern Ireland. If the product was placed, and you also need a separate UKCA approved body for applying the UKCA mark, separate to any notified body for applying the Raytec mark. And if the product was placed onto the GB market before this date, then they can continue to circulate until they reach their end user, as long as the product was on the market before January 2022. So that applies if you're purchasing or specifying for a project in Great Britain, but what if you're outside the GB and buying a product from a UK manufacturer? So does UKCA affect me? Well, solely looking at the certification requirements, nothing has changed. C and Raytec are still required within the EU, and UKCA is not a recognised mark in the EU. However, if you are purchasing directly from a UK manufacturer, there are some additional factors that you might need to consider. So the UK is now a third country outside of the European Economic Area. Therefore, distributors in the EU buying from a UK manufacturer in many circumstances are placing the product on the EU market for the very first time, and hence they are acting as an importer of goods into the EU. So the buyer takes on a little bit more responsibility than they did when the UK was within the European Union. So the extra responsibilities include verifying that the manufacturer has taken the necessary steps to allow the product to be placed on the EU market, that the product complies with all the conformity requirements, correctly marked, and that all the technical documentation is in place to be able to back up the EU Declaration of Conformity. And this additional technical data may be required for customs clearance into the EU. So we've all heard about delays at the borders since January, and this is because extra checks need to be in place for goods entering the EU market. But if the manufacturer has put a CE mark on their product, then all this information should be readily available. And it's worth noting that the same also applies the other way around. So for a UK distributor putting an EU product on the market in Great Britain, the conformity with UK legislation must be verified by the UK importer. So the same applies the other way around. So what are the requirements for obtaining UKCA approval? Well, the requirements of conformity assessment for UKEx are at the moment the same as the latest editions of the 60079 series of standards. However, that is the same as the very latest editions. So whereas with an Raytec product, this could be certified to an edition of the standard that could be 10 to 15 years old, a UKCA assessment must be against the very latest versions of the standards, taking into account all the changes in those standards over that time frame. And it is also a requirement to have the conformity assessed by a UK approved body, specifically for UKCA. And this is separate to any notified body assessment for a Raytec directive. So let's look at a bit of an example of those changes to the standards. So in that time frame discussed, there have been changes to the Zone 2 standards, with the old non-arcing EXNA conformity now being replaced with increased safety EXEC. So there's quite a few changes to this requirements, which include more stringent impact requirements, so a four joule impact on optical components and a 7 joule impact on non-optical components. And overall, these requirements are broadly similar to the requirements of a Zone 1 product, rather than the slightly uprated requirements from an industrial product that the old EXNA required. So these technical requirements may actually be quite difficult for some products on the market to comply with. And some manufacturers may have to seriously consider the commercial opportunity on the GB market, with taking into account the considerable cost of new certification and having to potentially update their products to meet the latest versions of the standards. So it's not a given that all manufacturers will apply a UKCA or even be able to apply a UKCA mark to their products. So what should you consider as a specifier during this grace period? Are you still specifying a product that is not UKCA approved? If you are, then you're currently doing nothing wrong as long as the boxes are ticked that we discussed earlier. But is that product certified to the old editions of the standard? Will it still be available on the GB market after January 2022? Will it still be compliant? And you really have to consider ongoing scope of works beyond January 2022. So what are we doing here at Raytec? Well, as always, we've always worked closely with our UK approved body to make sure that all of our products are compliant and certified to the latest editions of the standard. Over the last few months, we've been working very closely on this, and UKCA approval has been obtained for all of our hazardous product range. And these new certificate numbers are now being incorporated into our product literature, our declarations of conformity, our website, and our instruction manuals. Our plan is that our luminaires will be trirated, so with labeling showing both the UKCA mark with that particular approved body number, a CE mark with that particular ATEX notified body number, and also certificate numbers for ATEX, UKEx, and IECX displayed on the label. So because we hold conformity assessment with both a UK approved body and an EU notified body, and our products conform to the requirements of all three approvals, we can offer a single product variant suitable for the GB market, EU market, and the rest of the world. But the advice is to start applying the UKCA mark as soon as possible. And at Raytec, we're not waiting for the end of the grace period to bring our products into line. So from the 1st of June this year, luminaires shipped from Raytec will carry the UKCA mark, as well as the ATEX and IEC mark. And any industrial products will carry the UKCA mark and CE mark. So this will be our introduction day for the standard product range. But if you have a particular project or requirement needing UKCA earlier than the 1st of June, then I really would encourage you to speak to us at Raytec, and we'll see what we can do for your particular project. So just to summarize that, starting with the changes which affect everyone, we must use a UKCA approved product on the GB market from the 31st of December 2021. You should start to look to specifying UKCA approved luminaires as soon as possible. Changes to the UK-EU trading relationship means that this also affects those installing products outside of the UK. And a key factor is that not all luminaires all manufacturers will obtain or even seek to obtain UKCA marking. And lastly, what are Raytec doing in response to all this? So our luminaires will be tri-rated with UKCA, ATEX, and IECX marks on all of our products, suitable for all markets, with particular variants suitable for the North American market. A UKCA mark will be standard on all of our products from the 1st of June this year. So thank you for listening to that webinar, and we'll now open for any questions and try and answer any questions that you might have on that particular subject.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. So I think we'll turn our cameras on now. So as Jonathan said, now happy to take any questions you've got. So please put those into the question section of your control panel if you have any, and we'll try and answer those best we can. There was one from just check this, from Mikkel, just asking, will we get a copy of the presentation or a link to recorded version? Yes, Mikkel. So everyone who's been on today will get a copy of the slides, and also be putting a recorded version on the website after this as well. So we'll share that with you once it's available. But yeah, it'll be on later this week for you to watch back or to look back at the slides in your own time. Question from Tony, which has just come in. So Tony asks, so who are the UKEx notified bodies?
So generally speaking, any body that used to be a notified body for the CE directive, ATEX directive, are now a UK approved body for the UKCA and UKEx mark. So these include our particular approved body is CML in Ellesmere Port, and there are also a number of different bodies within the UK. So anyone that used to be a CE and ATEX approved body, notified body, are now a UK approved body.
Great, thank you. Question from Santosh. If we procure or assemble the items in 2021 without UKCA marking, but a client is receiving or installing the equipment in 2022, will UKCA be a mandatory requirement?
So as far as the advice we've been given is that as long as the product has been placed onto the GB market before the 31st of December 2021, then it still can continue to circulate until it reaches its end user. So if there's products in stock at a distributor or a wholesaler, and there's been a transaction that's happened which has placed that product on the market, then it can continue to circulate. Any new products placed on the market after the 31st of December must be UKCA marked.
Okay, thank you. A question from Adam. How will I know if the luminaire is UKCA approved?
So there is a requirement to produce a UKCA declaration of conformity. So in some cases, this can actually be a combined declaration of conformity, so a combined EU DFC and UKCA DFC, because the standards at the moment are the same. So the same editions of the standards apply. The product will also require a UKCA mark. So during the grace period, this particular mark can go onto product literature, or it can go onto a label attached to the product. But from the 31st of January 2021, it must be attached to the product. And Raytec's approach will be that both the product label will have a UKCA mark and also the box label. So the carton that the luminaire comes in will also display a UKCA mark and the UKEx certificate number. So you can easily determine which products on a storeroom shelf would be UKCA marked and which aren't.
Great, thank you. Another question from Tony. What format shall the new UKEx certificates take? Is there still the same X and U element? And if so, can the U components be compatible with existing ATEX items?
So in most respects, the UKEx certificate follows the same format as the old ATEX directive certificates. The only difference is the designated standards that the product is approved to. So rather than the old harmonized standards that EN standards and IEC standards, there's designated standards for UKCA. So basically the BSEN versions of the standards. It also needs to reference an approved body rather than a notified body, and the certificate number has UKEx within it rather than ATEX. So other than that, all the markings on the product are the same. Same has the same X at the end of the certificate if there's a particular special requirement for the product. So it largely follows the same format as the ATEX certificate.
Okay, thank you. Another question here from Jesus. Having any product, I'm just reading this again. Having a product already IECX certificate, or a product which is EICX certified, would it be easy to get UKCA or the test to be carried out to the same with or without an IECX certificate?
It depends on what version of the standard that particular product has been approved to. So as we talked about in the webinar, you could actually, under ATEX and IECX, you could approve your product to an old version of the standard, so not the very latest version. So EXNA, for instance, goes back to 2007, and that was perfectly okay under ATEX and IECX. But under UKCA, they have to be approved to the very latest version of the standard. So it's not a given that every product will be able to comply. But if they are certified to the latest versions of the standards, then they need to talk to and get approval from a UK test house and a UK approved body. So you need to deal with both EU notified bodies and UK. You can't just combine it with one notified body.
Okay, thank you. A question from Martin, can all luminaires be tri-rated?
So yes, as we talked about, as long as the UK standards are the same as the EN IEC harmonized standards. So if you have QAN and QA with a EU notified body and separately a QAN, which is a quality assurance notification with a UK approved body, and your product complies with the requirements of both the harmonized standards and the UK designated standards, then you can apply both marks to the product. It may be the case in the coming years that the standards start to diverge away from each other, in which case we might have to reassess that. But at the moment, because the standards are the same, we can apply both a UKCA and a CE mark to the same product.
Okay, thank you. This one's just an additional question from Santosh on the back of the previous one. So is it defined in terms of what is meant by a new product? Is it defined by the product model number or the production date of the instrument, which will be considered for the UKCA marking requirement?
The advice we've been given is that if the product has been manufactured and placed on the market, so any form of transaction has occurred between the manufacturer and the market in Great Britain, then that product can continue to circulate after the 31st of December. So it has to be built and it has to be on the market before that date. Anything that's newly manufactured after the 31st of December must be UKCA approved.
Okay, thank you. A question from Terry. I'm not sure if they'll give specific names for this, but Terry asked, are there any competitors you know that will not be able to meet latest versions of standards based on their current products? I'm guessing that's obviously still a bit up in the air at the moment with the with it still being optional at the moment, but it's I think it's something we'll see later in the year or next year.
Yes, yeah, I agree. It's difficult to, well, I'm not going to name any products, but yes, a particular requirement for impact rating, so a pared down zone 1 requirements rather than the slightly uprated industrial standards will come into effect during this year. So any product that potentially won't comply with a 4 joule impact on the optical components and a 7 joule impact on the body may not be able to obtain UKCA approval for zone 2.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just having a look through. I think that's most of the questions now that which we've answered. So we'll turn our cameras off now, but we'll stay on for a little while. So if you do have any more questions, we'll still be around to answer those. or of course you can get in touch with us offline, and we're happy to have any discussions or answer any questions you do have offline. So just like to say thanks very much for attending, much appreciated. Hopefully you've found it useful. Thanks as well to Jonathan, and like I say, we'll be sharing a recording of this after the webinar, so you can look back and look at the slides as well. But again, thanks very much for attending, and hopefully you found it useful.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Bye bye.